multiple U.S. senators over the decision. The U.S. president tried to clarify his decision, but how he chose to do so may have alienated its most important ally in the region. He responded to the criticism by tweeting, and I quote, "As I have stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey." Then in brackets, "I have done before." Such an aggressive language has never been used before and may push the already strained relationship between the two NATO allies to a newer low. So the question is, what will happen to the relationship between Turkey and the United States? We will discuss this on this episode of The Brief, but before introducing our guests, let's take a look at this report.
Amacımız Fırat'ın doğusunu da altını çiziyorum, barış pınarlarıyla sulamaktır.
Turkey launched Operations Euphrates Shield and Operation Olive Branch to clear its borders with Syria from terrorist organizations. In conformity with Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, Turkey exercised its right of self-defense and declared to the international community the launch of these counter-terror operations. Turkey, which shares a 911-kilometer border with Syria, is the most affected country by the threat of terrorist groups, particularly Daesh. This terrorist organization harassed Turkey's borders and targeted the very heart of its cities with suicide bombings, which killed hundreds of Turkish citizens. Turkey is the country who has inflicted the first and heaviest blow to the Daesh presence in Syria.
Fırat Kalkanı Harekatı ile yaklaşık 3500 DAEŞ'liyi etkisiz hale getirerek örgütün Suriye'deki çöküş sürecini biz başlattık.
And Turkey has been very important in the fight against Daesh, against terrorism.
Turkey has never supported war, conflict, bloodshed, death, or suffering. On the contrary, it desires a safe, peaceful, and prosperous future for itself and all of the Syrian people, including Arabs, Kurds, Turkmens, Assyrians, Yazidis, and Christians. The foremost objective of Turkey's all-time and upcoming military operation is to annihilate the threat of terrorism that the international community is facing in Syria. In the war-torn country, there has been no genuine return to the regions controlled by the regime and terrorist organization PYD, YPG, and Daesh. The parts liberated and secured by Turkish armed forces are the only places of return for the Syrians who fled their country for their lives. Some countries are trying to bring Turkey to its knees by placing the burden of terrorists and refugees on its shoulders.
We will continue our humanitarian policy towards Syrians. We expect the international community and especially the European Union to be with us as an effective partner.
The details of the planned safe zone for the east of Euphrates envisaged by Turkey emerged last month. According to the plan, 140 villages and 10 district centers will be established within the safe zone, housing between 5,000 and 30,000 inhabitants. Each village will have 1,000 houses, and each district will have 6,000 new homes built, a total of 200,000 new residences. The construction is expected to cost about $26.6 billion. The entire residential area in the safe zone will have 11 mosques, 9 schools, 5 youth centers, and 2 indoor sports halls.
Türkiye'nin güvenli bölge politikası, Suriye halkının kendi evlerine dönüşü konusundaki en makul ve insani yoldur. Bu gerçeği Fırat Kalkanı ve Zeytin Dalı Harekatı bölgelerinde bizzat yaşayarak gördük.
Now, major developments have taken place in Syria over the last few days. We saw many statements coming from the United States and also from Turkey. Now, the question is, why does Turkey want to do a counter-terrorism operation in northern Syria, and why Turkey wants to turn it into a safe zone? Here are some important facts that need to be highlighted in order to understand what's going on. Before I explain these points, I think it's important to talk about the PKK terrorist organization. The PKK terrorist organization is an organization which is recognized by Turkey as a terrorist organization and also by the United States and the European Union. PYD-YPG are the Syrian offshoots of the PKK terrorist organization, and the link between the PYD-YPG and PKK was in fact acknowledged by multiple top U.S. officials on many occasions. Now, the PYD-YPG are in the 32-kilometer area which Turkey has proposed to turn into a safe zone. They have been launching attacks using that area into Turkey, and that is why, in order to protect Turkey's national security, Turkey has to remove all kind of terrorist elements from that area. Along with that, there are many other reasons for the establishment of a safe zone in northern Syria. So, own security. Turkey shares 911 kilometers border with Syria, preventing formation of a terrorist corridor. In terms of Turkey's own security, these are the two most important points. Then we have return of Syrian refugees. Along with removing terrorists from that region, Turkey also plans to send about 2 million refugees to the safe zone. It will build all sorts of infrastructure in order to accommodate the basic necessities of the refugees. So it's not only to remove the terrorists, but also to accommodate approximately 2 million Syrian refugees into that safe zone. Just to make it clear, Turkey is hosting at the moment more than 3.5 million Syrian refugees. Then Syria's territorial integrity. The PYD-YPG does not only pose a threat to Turkey, but also to Syria. And then you have fight against Daesh. Turkey has neutralized over 3,000 Daesh terrorists in its operations that it conducted in Syria over the past 3-4 years. The first one was called Operation Euphrates Shield, and the second one was called Operation Olive Branch. Now, as you know, major developments have taken place between the relationship of United States and Turkey. We don't know what will happen in the future. We are seeing some strong statements coming both from the United States and Turkey. So we'll be discussing it today, but before doing so, let's bring on the screen some of the tweets President Donald Trump tweeted earlier today and yesterday. So these are not full tweets of President Trump, but some parts of it. So this one says the United States was supposed to be in Syria for 30 days. That was many years ago. We stayed and got deeper and deeper into battle with no aim in sight. And let's move on. Now, I held off this fight for almost 3 years, but it is time for us to get out of these ridiculous, endless wars, many of them tribal, and bring our soldiers home. Then we will fight where it is to our benefit and only fight to win. Let's move on. Now, it's a direct threat to Turkey. If Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. Then in brackets, I have done before. Let's move on. So many people then this is the tweet that he tweeted earlier this morning. The ones we saw before were from yesterday. So you can clearly see a change in tone of the U.S. president. Yesterday's tweets were more aggressive, and in this and the ones he tweeted today were kind of soft. So many people conveniently forget that Turkey is a big trading partner of the United States. In fact, they make the structural steel frame for our F-35 fighter jet. They have also been good to deal with, helping me to save many lives at Idlib province. Like I said, strong statements, contradictory statements coming from the United States at the moment. So what will happen to the relationship between these two NATO allies? That's the most important questions. So we will discuss these questions today with our guest. Let me bring in the panel for today. Joining us now from Ankara is Ms. Nur Özkan Erbay, Daily Sabah Ankara Bureau Chief and a foreign policy analyst. Then from the United States, we have Savannah Lane, Communications Manager at Turkish Heritage Organization and also a foreign policy analyst. Then again, from the U.S., we have Dr. Mark Tomass, instructor at Harvard University Extension School. Thank you very much to all of you for being with us. Savannah, let me start with you.
Sure.
In his tweet yesterday, President Donald Trump used the word obliterate for Turkey. Quite a strong word to use for an ally and a NATO member, isn't it?
Definitely. You know, this is something that, first of all, let me begin by saying this policy decision announced late Sunday night was something that really shocked many in D.C. And to see the continuing aggression through President Trump's tweets certainly seemed, one, like he was moving full forward with this policy decision. And then, like you mentioned, kind of walking it back a little bit. I think perhaps it stems from his pushback, a bipartisan pushback from different leaders on the Hill. But certainly this harsh language was something that is to note. But I do think it's important to recognize that President Trump and President Erdogan have a very close working relationship. We have seen them sort of spar and be at odds in the past, and we have seen them pick up the phone and have conversations. And I know that the D.C. community and the foreign policy world really will be looking forward to seeing President Trump and President Erdogan meeting just in a little bit over a month here in D.C.
Now, Professor Tomass, let me come to you. I want to focus on the bipartisan senators who have threatened to impose sanctions on Turkey if Turkey moves forward with an anti-terrorist operation in Syria. It is understood if the Democrats express their disapproval of President Donald Trump's decision on Syria, but it seems like the Republicans have also gone against their own president. So what does this tell us about the political spectrum of the United States at the moment?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jafar. Among the Republicans, there are two parts. One part is supporting Donald Trump because they believe he knows how to handle conflict, he knows how to handle adversaries, so therefore they are with him no matter what he does. The other side has other concerns, and mostly that has to do with the security of Israel. So let me just a little bit briefly summarize the positions of both. Donald Trump has been probably the most pro-Israeli president that you can have in U.S. history. So he has proven that through what he did. He recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He recognized the occupation of the Golan Heights as an Israeli right to occupy. And most likely, it is possible he will recognize the Israeli right to annex the West Bank as well. So for Israel, the U.S. president has been almost unequivocal in his support. That said, he is not willing to embrace the entire, let's say, the entire ambition of Israel within the Middle East. Israel feels more secure if all of the countries surrounding it is broken down into pieces. And it sees a historical opportunity within the Syrian conflict, and that is to create an autonomous zone in the northeast of Syria. And this has been confirmed, and we knew that from the beginning. But this has been confirmed even recently. It was yesterday that one other whistleblower from the White House who listened to the conversation between President Trump and the president of Turkey, he then spoke with Newsweek on anonymous basis. At least Newsweek didn't announce who he was. He said we could have had, or we would have another Israel in the Middle East if we supported that independence movement, and speaking about Kurdish independence. So the people who want that project to continue, they feel frustrated that the withdrawal of the U.S., with the withdrawal of the U.S., all of these non-state entities that exist now in northeast Syria would collapse. So there would be no prospect for the establishment of such an autonomous zone. On the other hand, if you look at it from those non-state actors, what they have done is they have not coordinated their ambitions with the neighboring people. And that I include Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran. For example, they have been seen in Syria from let's say, the people who are not sympathized with the YPD. They have seen as very aggressive in changing the way people have viewed Syria historically. For example, they are referring to North Mesopotamia as Rojava, which means the West. And the West of what? That means the West of Kurdistan. And in Syria, this area has been known as Al Jazeera in Arabic and Gozarto in Assyrian, or Syriac Assyrian. So historically speaking, people didn't like the idea of having their land being transformed in this way, even symbolically. For example, Ain al-Arab now is called Kobani. Again, so people have reacted against this unlimited strive towards changing the cultural, the ethnic face of the Northeast. So those non-state authorities, I think they have made a strategic mistake of not coordinating with the people that are surrounding them and dependent on the United States, who has over and over stated that they are looking at those non-state authorities, the YPD, the PKK. They are looking at them as tools. And he had said that frankly Donald Trump said that frankly in his tweet, that he expects them to be happy with the fact that they have supported them, they've given them money, and they've given him weapons, and now it's over. ISIS is gone, so we want to leave.
President, let me take the Turkish perspective on this. Ms. Erbay, I'm sure you have followed all the latest developments and statements coming from the United States. Please tell me, is Turkey concerned about the statements made by the bipartisan senators and the President of the United States himself?
Yes, from the perspective of Ankara, actually, Ankara got used to with the both style of U.S. politics. I mean, see, let's start with the Obama administration style. So, as we know, I used to serve in Washington as a journalist. So, Obama was one of the least at the press briefing held president. I mean, in his term, there was no public press meeting at all. At least it was number like 5 or 10. So now we are facing with the style of president. I mean, the école and tradition of the president, actually, who tweets every single minute about very serious state level issues. Such as today, I mean, such as yesterday. So this flip-floppy things and also inconsistent and ambivalent and contradictory style of business is very actually got used by Turkey in Ankara, especially in Trump term. But again, at the state level, the relations between Turkey and Ankara and political communication channel was not actually worst, I mean, not best or better than Obama term now. I mean, Obama term, we have seen a lot of promises, a lot of commitments last 6 years, actually. Why actually the Turkish-U.S. relations deteriorated? Because of the Obama's policies in his second term. So since then, there was a major threat against Turkey and against its national security. And in Obama term again in 2013, let's remember, Obama drove a red line about the chemical weapons in Syria and then came up with the no boots on the ground policy, which created this statu quo now in northern Syria, which created a possibility of PKK, PYD, YPG, SDF-led terror terror corridor, which was used as a proxy by the U.S. government back then. So what has changed after all? Trump came up with the idea of a full withdrawal from Syria. So that was welcomed by Turkey at the beginning, then evolved into kind of stalling process. So Turkey's baggage was already full, so in the maximum amount. So For now, actually, Trump reiterated his message to withdraw, as we have seen from Wall Street Journal pieces last Friday, actually. The U.S. officials already revealed that U.S. doesn't have any option but withdrawing from Syria. So this is not feasible, and this is not analytical anymore for U.S. government. So Trump find out the fact that Syria, being in Syria, it's not feasible anymore. So at the first hand, he used to be a businessman. So this is his another characteristic. So he's sharp, he's firm, but also revealing political character. So that creates time to time a political communication crisis between Ankara and Washington. But the personal level of relation is better than Obama term, apparently. So what Ankara expects from now on is to commit this withdrawal timetable, and also because excuse me, Ankara have seen worse scenarios in Obama term.
All right. Now, before we move forward, I would like to show this report on the contradictory statements made by the U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. Let's have a look at it, then we will discuss it further with our guests.
United States President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw American troops from northern Syria provoked a rebuke on Monday from foreign policy hawks in his own Republican Party. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, a frequent defender of Trump, harshly criticised the president for his pull-out decision.
If I didn't see Donald Trump's name on the tweet, I thought it would be Obama's rationale for getting out of Iraq. So here's what's going to happen. This is going to lead to ISIS reemergence.
Senator Graham has made several contradictory statements regarding the PKK terrorist organisation's Syrian offshoot, PYD-YPG. During his latest visit to Turkey in January, Graham stated publicly more than anyone else about the direct link between the PKK and its Syrian branches, PYD-YPG.
PYD is the political, is that the right acronym? The political arm of the YPG is interlinked, interconnected with the PKK. The evidence is obvious for anybody who wants to look.
This time, he threatened Turkey over its planned counter-terror operation east of the Euphrates, saying that he will call for Turkey's suspension from NATO if it takes a step in northern Syria.
I will do everything I can to sanction Turkey if they step one foot in northeastern Syria. That will sever my relationship with Turkey. I think most of the Congress feels that way. I will do a resolution urging the president to reconsider this decision.
Welcome back. Now, as you saw in the news report that Lindsey Graham acknowledged himself the link between PYD, YPG and the PKK terrorist organization. Savannah, let me come to you. Like I said, Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator, acknowledged himself the link between PYD, YPG and the PKK terrorist organization, which is not only recognized as a terrorist organization by Turkey, but also by the United States and the European Union. But when we look at the tweets of Lindsey Graham yesterday, for example, he referred to the PYD-YPG as allies. So definitely some contradiction going on here. And how does a terrorist turn into an ally within the span of a few months?
Sure. So, the Kurdish question is something that has plagued the U.S.-Turkey relationship for a long time. This is not a new development, certainly. And we have seen, like you mentioned, the PKK terrorist organization labeled by many different groups, including the U.S., as well as Senator Lindsey Graham. I think what it boils down to is that there is a lack of consistency in terms of delineating who is an ally and who isn't in terms of this group, whether it's the PKK or the Kurdish offshoot groups. We have seen now, though, politically, the rhetoric surrounding this from both sides of the aisle is that the Kurds are our allies. The Kurds must be protected. We mentioned it before on the show that it's not surprising to see people from the left calling President Trump to reverse this decision. But it is surprising, and it is important to note that Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a hawk but also a very, very strong ally for President Trump, to come out and publicly say this like you mentioned, it is contradictory, but to publicly say this and to demand protection of the Kurds, he wants to suggest introducing resolutions to ensure that they reverse this. This is important to look at. Something else to note, too, in the development of this issue is that, of course, yes, the Kurdish question is complicated in the domestic side of things for U.S. politics, but also what's important to note is that this is not a surprise from President Donald Trump, who has said constantly, time and time again, with campaign rhetoric, that he is going to bring our troops home. He constantly uses the phrases, useless wars, proxy wars. And so this is just another example of President Trump, I think, really modeling for this 2020 election campaign that he is really, really pushing for in terms of making sure that people see him as a strong leader. And I think it backfired, seeing this strong support against his policy move from Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. It's going to be telling to see what happens in the next few days, whether he reverses this or comes out strong once again to kind of show his strength, whether it be through economic sanctions or something else in retaliation. So we'll see.
All right. Now, Professor Tomass, let me come to you. Let me widen the topic a little bit. We are talking about Turkey and the United States right now, but I believe in Syria there are many stakeholders, including Russia and Iran. How do you think Russia and Iran are going to react to this latest development?
Before I answer your question, just let me comment on Savannah's response to you. I agree with what she said. However, if we focus on Donald Trump's tweet, it is not clear that when he said what is off limit, that he will obliterate the economy of Turkey if they do anything off limit. It's not clear what that off limit is.
Absolutely.
The way I see it, that he is not referring to a Turkish incursion into the north part of Syria, which, with an understanding, it's a limited incursion, only in the area that was agreed to during the Adana Agreement in 1998. He is looking at it that way, but the off-limit, the way I read his tweets, is that any release of the ISIS prisoners, the release of the ISIS prisoners that he is concerned about, he wants these prisoners to be handled by the people of the Middle East, do whatever they feel is right with them, and he doesn't want them to be set loose. So I think that's what he is referring to. Because otherwise you will not be able to explain the reversal of the tone of his tweet in his three subsequent tweets. So I think Donald Trump is serious about moving out, about getting out of the Middle East, getting out of Syria in particular at this time. The question is about his Republican backers. I think the Republican backers, as I said, as long as they are affiliated with a neocon ideology, they will fight against him. The question
Professor,
is
if I may ask here, previously it was said that it was the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who was stopping the U.S. president from pulling U.S. troops out from Syria. But now it seems like there are many other people who agree with John Bolton, isn't it?
Yes, of course. I mean, again, let me emphasize, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Regardless of even if the president is a Democratic president, you will still see the neocon ideology. It has a place in Washington D.C. in the U.S. foreign policy. So we cannot ignore that. Who presents that neocon ideology is irrelevant. It could be Lindsey Graham, it could be McConnell, it could be somebody else. So as long as there is, as long as the ideology that all of the nations surrounding Israel should be broken down into pieces is there as a strategic aim, there will be somebody to represent that. Now, coming back to your first question regarding what Russia and Iran will do, I think both Russia and Iran want the U.S. out, right? So if you recall, about a year ago, I told you that Russia actually wants to use Turkey to get the U.S. out. But the U.S. realized that it does not want to enter into an armed conflict. So, and two, who is going to pay the United States? Who is going to pay the cost of the United States staying in Syria? So the United States, under Donald Trump, it's about a cost-benefit analysis, and cost-benefit analysis has to do with money. So for him, it makes no sense. That's why he wants to get out. He is aware that this is not going to make the neocons happy, but this is going to be, as Savannah said, we are going to see in the future few days or maybe few weeks how that conflict is going to be resolved. Whether he will prevail, whether he will take this case to the American people, or whether he will cave in. I'm inclined to think this time he will be prevailing, and he will carry on the policy of withdrawing from Syria. So both Russia, so coming back again to Russia and Iran, I think both of them would like to see the U.S. out, and for that reason they are quiet. They want to see the U.S. out, and then they will see how to handle the situation. Russia will handle the situation in a way that would be more, let's say, more amicable to the Syrian regime. Russia wants the Syrian regime to take control over the entire Syrian territory, as acknowledged by the Sykes-Picot Agreement. So, so the question is, if the U.S. goes out? What would the Syrian regime do? I think the Syrian regime will have to come up with some sort of understanding with Turkey that this incursion and the resettlement of refugees in northern Syria, which, as I said before, they would implicitly accept but not publicly accept, as long as they would be having some sort of control over that region in terms of opening their own schools. That is not over. Sorry. In terms of controlling the curriculum as to what these people are going to learn in school. Are they going to be educated as that region is part of Turkey or part of Syria? So I think that is an open question, and that's going to be resolved later on.
Definitely, that's very important. And I think it can be said, while Turkey, Russia, and Iran, they have their differences when it comes to Syria, there is consensus when it comes to the United States. They all want the U.S. out from Syria. Now, Ms. Erbil, let me come to you. A very important question. I think it's on a lot of people's mind at the moment, especially in the western part of the world. Why does Turkey feel it is Turkey's fundamental right to do a counterterrorism operation in the 32-kilometer area?
Yeah, as I actually mentioned at the beginning, Turkey's national security actually wasn't threatened that much in the history. So in his Turkey's northeastern Syria, all along the border, like 932 kilometers. So there's a potentially, as the professor mentioned in this week's piece, actually, the White House official revealed and maybe they confessed the fact that United States will be better to support another smaller version of Israel in Syria by supporting Kurdish population across Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. So given this fact and accepting this fact, there are some lobbies in the White House, there are some lobbies in Washington, and strong lobbies in Washington, wants to see that country or states or some powerful actor in northern Syria is real. So, so Turkey actually considered this fact in a broader picture. Of course, at the first hand, the direct national security threat by PKK as well as Daesh was on the ground in the last 6 years. And still, there is a threat of Daesh as well, besides PKK. So, and return of Syrian refugees again. So this is why this operation might be called, and more likely to be called as a peace operation. So Turkey wants actually this 2 million Syrians at the first stage to go back to their homes safely, as Turkey did in the last two operations in 2016 and 2018. So this operation will be one of the actually biggest chance for Turkey and for whole the region and also for the whole Europe to send the Syrian refugees and guests and under the Turkey's protection as a guest to send them back their home safely. So this is the second biggest actually aim for Turkey to help this operation. And the third one, actually aligning with these two goals, Turkey wants and pursues strongly Syria's territorial integrity. So Turkey wasn't actually laid back. I mean, Turkey wasn't taking this community back in any level, any sense of this whole 6 years from the beginning of the civil war erupted. So Turkey wants serious Syrian territorial integrity as well as political process, which was actually committed by Russia and Iran, let's remember, 2 to 3 weeks ago in Ankara summit. So the political process is ongoing now, along with the Astana process. So the Constitutional Committee were formed. So Turkey wants this operation to create a sustainable peace in Syria, sustainable political solution for Syria, and territorial integrity of Syria, as well as, for sure, as all sovereign states, as well as to sustain its own national security.
All right. All right. Now, Savannah, let me come to you. After yesterday's aggressive tweet by the U.S. President Donald Trump, today we saw a different one in which he basically announced that President Erdogan will be visiting the United States on the 13th of November. Could you please tell us what are the American expectations from this meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan?
Sure. So this is obviously a critical meeting, a critical juncture. But I think it also shows that although there are major discrepancies often between U.S. and Turkey, there is constantly, like I mentioned before, this relationship that has prevailed. Specifically with President Trump and President Erdogan, there is a strong working relationship. I think that between the American people and people in Washington, D.C., we are expecting to continue to have discussions regarding the developments in Syria. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen today, tomorrow, in terms of the development. So we could be having a very different conversation in terms of expectations for the meeting coming in a month between President Trump and President Erdogan. But I do think that obviously developments in Syria are going to be something to discuss. Of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room with the developments of the S-400 and the F-35 situation between Turkey and the U.S. They are, at the end of the day, though, NATO allies. And I think that what is critical to realize is from the top down, from President Trump and many other members on the Hill and throughout the U.S. government, we recognize from the U.S. perspective that there is a strong threat to Turkey's national security. So at least to have, at the very least, this understanding and the support for Turkey in that sense, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that this meeting will continue to provide inroads for the relationship. I think it's important to recognize that we are NATO allies. This is a critical relationship for the region, and hopefully we'll be able to see some headway in the next few days before we look for that major meeting in November.
I totally agree with you, Savannah. Turkey and the United States are great NATO allies, and every differences between them should be solved through a constructive dialogue. Professor Mark Tomass, let me come to you. I know it's one of the hardest things to predict what goes on in Syria, what will happen in Syria, but given the latest developments, please tell me, where do you think this war is headed towards?
I think this time Turkey will undertake the operation to enter the northeast region, and I think the resettlement process is most likely will proceed sometime in the near future. I think what we have to be careful about is what we have to observe is how the Turkish and pro-Turkish some army that it's called now the Syrian National Army, which Turkey has helped to construct, to develop, to establish, how they are going to deal with the armed groups in Syria, whether they are going to whether it's going to be an all-out war, starting with aerial bombardment and then with tanks and artillery bombarding, or is it going to be simply with infantry going into the northeast region? Again, what will happen will also depend as to what the armed groups, YPG, YPD, how will they face the Turkish incursion? Whether they will be fighting them or they will be withdrawing. Most likely, I would predict that they will be withdrawing the same way they withdrew from Afrin last year. So I think I am optimistic that we will not see a major human catastrophe taking place. The other thing that we have to be aware about, the northern Mesopotamian region is sparsely populated. It's a breadbasket of Syria, the breadbasket of actually more than Syria. So most of it is agricultural land, and agricultural land that depends on rain. So there are very few populated areas. The biggest center of population is Qamishli, that is in the far northeast, and then you have smaller towns across the border. So because of that, I think the area is more or less open, and it is flat. So it is very hard for the insurgency to remain there for a long time. So I am predicting that they will be withdrawing to the south, and eventually they will be surrendering to the Syrian government forces, and they would be disarmed.
All right, we'll definitely see what happens, Ms. Erbay. Same question for you. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is visiting the United States on the 13th of November. What are the Turkish expectations from this meeting?
In my opinion, until November 13, Turkey will take the operation. We'll implement whatever Turkey has on the military side and also political level. So Turkey already decided and showed its determination to implement this plan and operation on the ground. So I don't foresee that Turkey will wait and hold off this operation until November 13. So after all, President Erdogan will go to Washington as a president of Turkey, who is determined to apply its plan for its nation's security and get an acceptance from Washington, get an acceptance from his counterpart, from President Trump. So that will create a very big confidence for President Erdogan, I think. And after all, Turkey will seek for further implementations of U.S. government, whether they will commit with arming PKK fractions, PKK and its offshoots, YPG and SAF forces on the ground. So as far as we know, they're pulling out to the south of northern eastern part of Syria right now, around north of Raqqa. So Turkey will establish the security zone, peace corridor in 32-kilometer wide and 120-kilometer length. So Turkey will seek for the reactions from Washington after all. But I don't think that Turkey will wait for the operation until November 13 before the meeting. After the meeting with between President Trump and Erdogan.
All right. Ms. Nur Özkan Erbay in Ankara, thank you very much for being with us. And Professor Mark Tomass and Savannah Lane in the United States, thank you very much for participating in today's program.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to the end of another episode of The Brief. Like I always say, the United States and Turkey are great allies and also NATO allies. We must not forget that their partnership goes back to the beginnings of the 20th century. All the differences between the two countries should be solved through a constructive dialogue, and aggressive and strong statements are not the way forward. I'm Jafar Hasnan. See you on Thursday.